Now let us see some terms associated with biodiversity. You would have heard about the terms keystone species, flagship species, indicator species and all. Let us see what are these about. What is flagship species? These species are used by environmentalists for their conservation advocacy. For example, in India, Bengal tiger is taken. So these animals have a charismatic appeal, and worldwide Fund for Wildlife WWF uses giant panda. Right, its face is synonymous with WWF. They use this face for their advocacy for environmental conservation. Like this, certain species which are specific to the particular ecosystem will be chosen, and it will be having particular appeal. Such species are called flagship species. For example, in case of Western Ghats, we may take the lion-tailed macaque, like that. This species can also be called charismatic megafauna. Once this species were called like this also. Now generally we use the term flag species for our conservation efforts. And other type of species is keystone species. What is a keystone? Keystone, this term civil engineers and architects will be familiar with. In an arch, when we are constructing an arch, there will be a stone in the topmost portion. This stone is called keystone. If this stone is absent, the whole arch will collapse. That is, the stone is supporting the whole structure. In the same sense, the keystone species plays a crucial role in the ecosystem. Their numbers will be less. That means, irrespective of their number of population in their particular ecosystem, their role is significantly high. This kind of species will be essentially pollinators or predators. How this will work? For example, pollinator honeybee. If honeybee is absent, plants won't get pollinated, plants reproduction will be affected, and it will affect the whole ecosystem. What about predators like tiger? This tiger helps in maintaining the biodiversity. How? The tiger will feed on the variety of herbivores, so that there is a competition within the herbivores to adapt to the different circumstances. Some prey species will be feeding on grass, some other will be feeding on herbs, some will be having shelter in burrows, some will be having adaptations to escape from the predator. Like that, there evolve a variety of species, and the number of these species also maintained by the tiger due to predation. Otherwise, the species would overgraze and remove the plant life in that region, and the land will go barren. So the tiger maintains the balance in the food chain and thus balance in the ecosystem also. Like that, the predators in other ecosystem. For example, in kelp forest. What is kelp? Kelp is a seaweed, very high seaweed. It is like a forest in the sea, and sea urchins will feed on the kelp forest, and sea otters will feed on sea urchins. So here the sea otter is a keystone species because it prevents sea urchin in depleting the kelp forest. And other kind of keystone species will be, one special kind of tortoise found in America, and they will dig burrows. And these burrows will be used by 300s of other species for their habitat or shelter for laying eggs. That is, these species will help numerous other species. Like that, an animal called beaver can also be considered a keystone species by some people, because they will construct a dam across the rivers so that the water will stagnate and many species will thrive in that reservoir ecosystem. So these are the main characteristics of the keystone species. Now let us see about indicator species. These species will indicate the health of the ecosystem. Sometimes this indicator will indicate the pollution. For example, lichens will change their color, or lichens will dry out if particular chemicals are present in the atmosphere. We can take the example of frogs. Recently there was a news that the number of deformed frogs in Western Ghats is discovering more numbers, deformed. They will be either blind or limbs will be deformed, because these frogs are very sensitive to the ecosystem toxicity. If there are any toxic chemicals like pesticides are present in the ecosystem, the frogs will show it, and they also indicate environmental changes in the ecosystem also. Some species will indicate the health of the ecosystem. For example, if you are able to see waterfowl is a water bird in a wetland, it means that that wetland is healthy. These are the indicator species which indicates the overall balance or health or pollutants in the ecosystem. Now there are other type of species called umbrella species. What does this species mean? This species, their characteristics, their needs, their shelter needs, their food needs is such that if we are taking care of this species, the needs of many other species will also be taken care. For example, if you take elephant, this elephant feed on a variety of plants, and this elephant needs huge large tracts of land for their forage needs. They will travel a lot. If we are maintaining this habitat to conserve elephant, it means that we are conserving the whole ecosystem. We are conserving a lot variety of plants and the habitat itself. Usually for conservation purposes, we will take this umbrella species for our conservation efforts. For example, we have Project Tiger, right? It means that if you are protecting the tiger, the whole forest ecosystem will be preserved, or the whole grassland ecosystem will be preserved. And these are the umbrella species. What is meant by foundation species? And what is foundation? If you are constructing a building, we will build the base very strong, then the upper structures, right? The foundation species also has the same function. They form the base. That means they will support the basic requirements in an ecosystem. This includes the green plants. That they will be abundant in the ecosystem. The number will be high. And they performs the basic functions like photosynthesis or nutrient cycling, like decomposers or like that. It is opposite to the keystone species, which is having very less number and play crucial role. These species have larger numbers and support the basic functions of the ecosystem. And we have other terms like Endemic species. What is endemicity? Endemicity is the feature that a species will be present only in a particular geographic area and nowhere else. Nowhere else. That is, this is important. They are found nowhere else, only in that particular region. Then we can tell that species is endemic to that particular region. We have many endemic species in India. For example, flying squirrel, Namdapa flying squirrel, lion-tailed macaque, like these animals which can be found only in India, and in India also in particular place. Lion-tailed macaque will be in Western Ghats and Namdapa flying squirrel is in Arunachal Pradesh. Like that feature is called endemicity. And what is its difference between indigenous species? Indigenous species is that species which are naturally present in a particular region. That is, it is not brought to that place by any artificial methods, or human has brought it from outside. It is not like that. It is present naturally in that region. But it doesn't mean that indigenous species should be endemic, because this same type of species can be available in other places also, but it need not to be present only in this region. For example, we can tell that kangaroo is indigenous to Australia because it is evolved there and present there naturally. It didn't come from anywhere else. We have many indigenous species in India also, like certain kind of trees, fetal like neem, and opposite to is invasive species. So this species comes from somewhere else to the ecosystem, or alien species, or exotic species. And this species can be either harmful or beneficial. So particularly when this invasive species is harmful, it will lead to biodiversity loss. We have discussed before some examples how invasive species are destroying the ecosystem. We have seen African catfish, lantana grass, and acacia trees are some type of invasive species.
For engineering services general studies video lectures, visit www.iesgeneralstudies.com. For mechanical engineering video lectures and question and answer discussion, visit www.getnet.com.